So stress is what we're talking about today. A little bit about me, because y'all have to like listen to me for the next like 25 minutes. So like, who am I to talk about stress? I need to tell you a little bit about the credibility I have talking about this. So I'm a fourth year at ETSU's PhD clinical psychology program, which basically means I've been going to school for a very long time. This is after bachelor, so I'm in like, oh gosh, year like 9 of school at this point, after high school. And our program over there focuses on really thinking about the intersection of mental health and physical health, which is right where stress tends to hang out. But of course, as a graduate student too, boy, do I know about stress. So I'm glad that y'all have just come off midterms. Y'all will be experts on stress too, in our discussion today. But yeah, in a couple short years, I'll be a fully certified doctor, and working with kids just like y'all on things like stress. So I'm so excited to be able to just talk with you a little bit today and give you hopefully some skills and ways to deal with the weight that is life. Okay, so I know that it's a little awkward on Zoom to know whether someone's going to talk and whether or not to unmute and when to jump in. So to kind of make that a little bit easier, and especially since I can't see all of y'all's lovely faces while I have this screen up, I'll probably just randomly like call in a couple of people to like share. But y'all are experts on stress too. You guys are teenagers and you're in school, and that makes you a pro at this. So I'm hoping you can also throw a hand up. I'll always take volunteers first, but I'm hoping someone can tell me a little bit about like what stresses you out, if you're willing to just like name something. All right, I don't immediately see any hands, which is totally fine. I'm gonna put someone a little bit on the spot, and that's okay. All right, so what is something that stresses you out, Mia?
I tend to procrastinate, and so that stresses me out because when I save all my homework for like Thursday and I have a class on Friday, that tends to be stressful. School in general.
Yeah, those are great ones. Those are great. Yeah, especially like school, just the general course load. And then when you talk about adding in like procrastination, which in the short term feels great, but in the long term feels awful. So that was a great addition. Thank you, Mia. And I see some other people adding in like when they fight with their siblings, being late. Yeah, being late to anything. For me, it's being late to everything, as evidenced even here. I was a couple minutes late logging on. Let's see. Let's hear from, I don't know if y'all's names on here are actually your names, so if I just call out what I can see, I'm sorry if it's not right, but Amber, what stresses you out? I see last name Freeman.
He just put social interaction in the chat box.
Oh, good. So calling on you was like not ideal. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so social interaction can be stressful. Absolutely. Especially when it's new people or in a platform that you're not used to interacting in, which seems to be the world we're living in right now. Thank you so much for contributing those, y'all. Those are like definitely common things that cause stress and make a lot of sense. So yeah, there's tons of things that can stress you out. There's school, there's friends, there's relationships, there's your parents, there's life, there's a freaking pandemic. Like that is also stressful. There's a lot to feel stressed about. And also, y'all are in this really weird space of being teenagers. I think Jillian told me y'all are like 9th grade to 12th grade. So you guys are in this really weird time of like having a lot of expectations put on you, like to be more like an adult or to behave in a way that's adult, and yet you don't have the freedoms to be an adult. So that's a really weird kind of stressful place to be in, to balance these expectations, but also recognizing like in some ways y'all are still kids, and that's a hard line to walk. So y'all are definitely experts on stress, just between all the things you contributed and also being teenagers. I'm wondering too, has anyone noticed things that are like more likely to make you feel stressed or overwhelmed? So like not the things that do stress you out, but have you noticed, are there things that go on or ways that you feel that make you less likely to be able to handle your stress? I'll also keep an eye out for chat because it seems like that's one of y'all's preferred ways, which is awesome. Anybody? That's a harder question. What have you noticed? When are you less likely to be able to handle your stress? What kind of things are going on in your life when you're less likely to handle it? Okay, so Dolly's thrown in when she's engaging in social media a lot, she's less likely to be able to handle her stress. Yeah, so when we get kind of sucked into the vortex of like other people's thoughts and feelings and all the things that are kind of going wrong, I know that can happen with news really easily these days too. Oh, that's a great one. Thank you, Mia. Yeah, when you're tired, your body's just working on staying awake. It's not even it's working on that, so it doesn't have the extra resources and energy to put into trying to help you regulate your stress. Anybody else? Okay, I see like when you're not taking care of yourself. So yeah, probably when you have a lot of things on your plate and just trying to like balance one more thing with stress is just too much. We're not as able to handle it. Absolutely. These are great ones, guys. Okay, yeah. Oh, I love this contribution too. So a time of day in particular. So someone wrote at night. That's a great point. Yeah, sometimes like when we've had a full day and we like haven't gotten to all the things we wanted to get to, or we finally have time to slow down, and then all the thoughts come rushing in of like crap, I have so much I still need to get done, or I need to do this tomorrow, or I forgot that thing. Those tend to sneak up on us when we're trying to like unwind or fall asleep for the night. Horrible timing, but it tends to happen that way. Okay, yeah. So when you have a lot to do, that's another great one. When you're feeling overwhelmed already and then you're trying to manage stress while managing everything else, absolutely. A lot of people are saying that one. That one seems to resonate with a lot of people. I also see, yeah, stress about not being good enough for everyone. So yeah, that's a common one too. Like really worrying, like, am I measuring up? And the more we think about like have I let anyone down or am I good enough, the harder it becomes to manage a lot of those other stresses or even just get things done. And then by not getting it done, then we feel more stressed. It's a horrible cycle. Y'all are doing such a good job at identifying these. That was a harder question. Requires a lot of mindfulness. All right. So stress, unfortunately, which is why we all experience it so much, is natural and it's just part of being a human. Um, we've got some like hard wiring in our brain that makes stress really necessary, but also makes it suck. So some of the ways that it's super necessary is it lets us know when there's some threats in the environment. So things that we need like a big burst of energy for to get away from, or times that it might be adaptive to have a really strong motivation. So it's one of the things that stress can do that makes it natural and adaptive. Unfortunately, it sets off a whole like sequence of things in our body with chemicals and hormones, and that's kind of what can lead us like to feel really overwhelmed. And I've got a great video on the next slide that kind of like it's very silly animations, but it does a good job of like kind of talking about what is happening inside your body when you're feeling that stress. Now, the reason there's a bell curve on this slide is because stress is kind of one of those things, like we've heard it, all things in moderation, right? And it's stress too. So if you're over, I hope y'all can see my cursor. Am I right to think that you can see the pointer? Okay, awesome. Thank you for the thumbs up and the nods. It's super helpful. So when you're over on this end here, where you're not feeling any stress at all, sometimes it can be hard to be motivated. So like that's where some of that procrastination can come in. Like, oh, I've got a while for this paper. I'm feeling kind of nervous about it. I'm just gonna put it off. And we maybe have some lower motivation to get it done when we're hanging out over here. And then as we start to feel some more stress and we reach like the sweet spot of stress, if we're even being generous here, it can be really motivating. It can like get you to get things done. You might clean your room really quickly so to be able to go hang out with friends. So just enough stress to like get you to do something. A deadline on a paper can be really motivating. So those are the levels of stress where we're able to perform at our best. So if you're a little bit nervous about a test going into it, you're probably going to do better than if you go into a test like not worried at all, which is kind of nice to know because that worry can be helpful. But if we end up over on this end, we end up with some really bad effects too. So when our stress reaches a point that's too much, we lose out on the benefit of having some stress, and it becomes no longer adaptive, but can actually like create some problems for us. So that's like those times when you're so stressed that you like just end up breaking down, or you stop being productive at all because you're just so overwhelmed you like don't even feel like you can make a decision. Those times where you just feel kind of stuck, that's usually when our stress levels have hit this over here. May even be where you notice that you do a lot of avoiding. So maybe instead of your homework, you're like falling into a YouTube hole, or you're on TikTok, or you're FaceTiming with friends when you know that you have other things to do, but the things to do feel like they're too much. So that's usually when we're over here. And it's important to recognize that, yes, there are good things about stress, but it's also important to understand this side of the curve, because y'all are at a point in life where being at this side of the curve is really easy to be. There's a lot of demands on your attention and on your time and on your energy. And y'all did such a great job of identifying all of those things, whether it's school or expectations or pressures that you put on yourself to be good enough, or pressures that other people put on you to be good enough, or fitting in, or friends, or balancing all of that while also doing school and things that matter to you. Those are things that put you at high risk to be over here. So to kind of understand what's going on with our bodies over there, I have this video, and I'm going to preface this with the animations are very silly. They will probably be distracting at first, just a little bit, but the content of the video is so good and the science behind it is completely accurate. So I wanted to share it with y'all, and I hope that you guys are able to look past some of the silliness and get the content. Let me see here. Okay. Let me reshare my screen with the video. Bear with me. There it is. Okay.
Cramming for a test, trying to get more done than you have time to do. Stress is a feeling we all experience when we are challenged or overwhelmed, but more than just an emotion. Stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout your entire body. In the short term, stress can be advantageous, but when activated too often or too long, your primitive fight or flight stress response not only changes your brain, but also damages many of the other organs and cells throughout your body. Your adrenal gland releases the stress hormones cortisol, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine. As these hormones travel through your bloodstream, they easily reach your blood vessels and heart. Adrenaline causes your heart to beat faster and raises your blood pressure, over time causing hypertension. Cortisol can also cause the endothelium, or inner lining of blood vessels, to not function normally. Scientists now know that this is an early step in triggering the process of atherosclerosis, or cholesterol plaque buildup in your arteries. Together, these changes increase your chances of a heart attack or stroke. When your brain senses stress, it activates your autonomic nervous system. Through this network of nerve connections, your big brain communicates stress to your enteric or intestinal nervous system. Besides causing butterflies in your stomach, This brain-gut connection can disturb the natural rhythmic contractions that move food through your gut, leading to irritable bowel syndrome, and can increase your gut sensitivity to acid, making you more likely to feel heartburn. Via the gut's nervous system, stress can also change the composition and function of your gut bacteria, which may affect your digestive and overall health. Speaking of digestion, does chronic stress affect your waistline? Well, yes. Cortisol can increase your appetite. It tells your body to replenish your energy stores with energy-dense foods and carbs, causing you to crave comfort foods. High levels of cortisol can also cause you to put on those extra calories as visceral or deep belly fat. This type of fat doesn't just make it harder to button your pants. It is an organ that actively releases hormones and immune system chemicals called cytokines that can increase your risk of developing chronic diseases such as heart disease and insulin resistance. Meanwhile, stress hormones affect immune cells in a variety of ways. Initially, they help prepare to fight invaders and heal after injury, but chronic stress can dampen the function of some immune cells, make you more susceptible to infections, and slow the rate you heal. Want to live a long life? You may have to curb your chronic stress. That's because it has even been associated with shortened telomeres, the shoelace tip ends of chromosomes that measure a cell's age. Telomeres cap chromosomes to allow DNA to get copied every time a cell divides without damaging the cell's genetic code, and they shorten with each cell division. When telomeres become too short, a cell can no longer divide, and it dies. As if all that weren't enough, chronic stress has even more ways it can sabotage your health, including acne, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, headaches, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and irritability. So, what does all this mean for you? Your life will always be filled with stressful situations, but what matters to your brain and entire body is how you respond to that stress. If you can view those situations as challenges you can control and master, rather than as threats that are insurmountable, you will perform better in the short run and stay healthy in the long run.
Okay. So thanks for hopefully being able to stay engaged with it, even with the really silly figures and the very zen octopus or octopus man. I'm not sure what he is, but I kind of like him. Let me pull this PowerPoint back up here. All right, so what's important to remember with that video is that this is not just like any time you feel stress that's going to happen and that you're going to have all these horrible side effects with, like, you know, you're gaining weight or getting acne, or, you know, your blood vessels filling up with plaque. Like, this is not something that happens every time you feel stressed, and stress is not something you need to like be scared of or run from. It's just when we're on that far side of that bell curve of stress for too long, that these things can happen. And that's why it's important to have skills and strategies to be able to bring your stress more to that middle or even to that low end sometimes. So finding ways to like use your stress to help you rather than to like tear you down. And also sometimes finding ways to shut it out entirely. Do y'all have any questions on that video before we move on? I know it's a lot of science, but I think in the grade that y'all are at, you like should get to see like behind the curtain and understand what's going on. But if anyone has any questions, I can definitely answer questions about this. I do quite a bit with the neurobiology of stress. Nope. Okay, that's all right. If you do have questions, you can send them in chat and I will try to, hey, I see the chat button going off. Best animation ever. Awesome. I'm glad that that worked out. Okay. All right. So I've got another side.